we ask that if your name is not actually who you are, to go ahead and update it to be your name. And it'd be great if you added your organization next to it so we have a little context. I'll give you all a minute to do that. All right, looks like a lot of folks are doing that, and I'll put it in the chat as well as a reminder. But we want to respect your time, and we have a lot of really good context and content that's going to be shared with us today. So I want to go ahead and get started. So thank you all for being here and for joining us today for our session to really talk about board engagement, right? We're here, most of us participating in Midlands Gives. Some of us are not, which is okay too, but we have a really great trainer with us and friend of the Community Foundation, Mitzie Schafer, who is joining us today. She has a wealth of knowledge. A lot of you already know her. Mitzie's been around the Midlands nonprofit world for, I'm not going to date her, but for enough time that a lot of us know her and respect her. And she can tell you a little bit about sort of the organization she's served with and, you know, provide some of that context. But she does live here locally in Newberry County, which we're excited to have her joining us today. She's going to share her screen and do and talk through her slides. If you have questions that are sort of burning, go ahead and drop them in the chat. I'll monitor that, and we'll ask them along the way if that feels right, or else we'll hold them to the end. But go ahead and enter them in. That way we don't lose those questions, and we can have time for question and answers at the end. For those of you who are just joining us, feel free to please change your name to actually reflect who you are, the 3 dots in the top right corner of your screen. Update your name, add your organization, which would be helpful as well for some of our conversations. But from here, I'll go ahead and turn it over to Mitzie, and we'll get going.
All right. Thanks, Erin. Thanks, everybody, for being here. I'm excited to do this. I will tell you a couple of random things about me. Your faces matter to me. I do read faces on Zoom. I am literally on Zoom all day, every day. So I've gotten really good at that. So if you're in a place where you can turn your cameras on and I can visually engage with you, it does help. If I see everybody crinkle their faces, then I know I didn't say something the right way, and I need to restate it. So I am a consultant and partner with GSB Fundraising. And as Erin said, I've been around the Midlands basically all of my nonprofit career. I worked with Lutheran Family Services, which is now Lutheran Services of the Carolinas, right out of grad school. And then spent the bulk of my time at what was then Epworth Children's Home, now Epworth. And fundraising is one of my babies, but everything that we do around fundraising matters. And board development is one of the key pieces to growing giving to an organization. So we're going to talk about Midlands Gives, but we're going to set it up before we get to it with some key board development pieces and what they have to do with fundraising and increasing giving to your organization. Okay. All right. So let me share screen here. So just for official purposes, the board's role in fundraising and Midlands Gives. That's our topic for today. Our objectives for the training include learning the difference between deposits and withdrawals, and not in accounting, but in donor relationships. Work from a strategic plan, how the board can work from a strategic plan for fundraising. The idea of being leadership-led, a team of board and volunteers who focus on funds development, and then building a system or calendar for your fundraising work. So to get started, I want to lean into deposits and withdrawals. And before I show you all of that slide, I want to tell you a story. A real quick story about what it means to be camper first, donor first, client first, staff first. It means that we're making relationship withdrawals into the life of the people that we serve or work alongside of before we make a deposit, before we make a withdrawal. And a relationship withdrawal sounds like, especially in fundraising. So if you think about the content that you're putting out, the way you're talking about donors, even in board meetings, has a play in how we treat donors. It kind of is a good way to see what we're really what we're really saying about people. So withdrawal language in our communications to our donors sounds like we need, we're running out of, we don't have enough of. Why don't people, asking people to RSVP or to come to something or to sign up to something, asking people to give is actually a withdrawal, but it is something we get to do if we do it well. And then asking people to give or participate from a place of shame or obligation, okay? On the flip side of that, relationship deposit language is inspiration. It's gratitude. It's creating this join me culture where we don't ask somebody to do something that we're not willing to do ourselves, but we've done it. And because we've done it and we know it makes a difference, we can ask people to join us as a part of that. And then it's helping to connect their generosity to the transformation that happens because of your organization. You affect change in the lives of the people that you serve. And anytime we can help a donor connect their actual gift to that transformation, we're making a huge relationship deposit. The goal in our messaging, and this is whatever's coming from the organization, whether it's coming from staff, whether it's coming from board, whether it's coming from volunteers, our goal is that we're sharing an 80% deposit ratio. So if you think about all the messaging that is coming from your organization, you want to make sure that you've made enough relationship deposits, that you've built enough relationship equity that when you need to make a withdrawal, you can. So for example, Midlands Give Day is going to be a day where we're asking people to give. So we want to front end that ask with relationship deposits before we get to that day. And that becomes a cycle through your whole calendar, which we'll talk about at the end. When you think about fundraising, there are 4 steps to fundraising and how we communicate. The first one is that we inform people, and then we inspire them, we ask them, and we thank them. Okay, so those 4 steps are either withdrawals or deposits. And if we're going to be asking for anything, especially on like a Midlands Gives Day, we want to make sure that those deposits have happened. So that means sharing inspiration and gratitude on the front end of the day happening. Can you tell stories? Can you show people the difference that you've made in someone's life? That is something you can do prior to Midlands Gives Day or any other ask that you do. And the board has a pretty key role in helping to maintain that ratio and that relationship. Often in our organizations, when it comes to board members themselves, we're all we're doing is asking them, right? We often forget that they're donors too, that they're volunteers too, and that they need to be thanked and they need to be cultivated and they need to understand the difference that they're making by being a part of the board. So when you're thinking about your deposit withdrawal ratios and you're going to ask the board to help with Midlands Gives Day, you want to lean into deposits before you get there. And one of the things that we used to say at Epworth with training when we were thinking about our children and their pain-based behaviors because of the trauma is if you plant lettuce and the lettuce doesn't grow, you don't blame the lettuce. So if you have board members who aren't participating, we don't blame the board members. We ask, how can we cultivate them more so that they understand their role and they understand what it is we need them to do. And the same is true for our donors. If our donors aren't giving, we don't blame the donors. We ask ourselves what we should be doing and could be doing to help build that relationship equity. Okay. That's a big culture shift for a lot of organizations. But when we see our board members and our donors as partners instead of ATMs, it changes how we approach them. And we look forward to making relationship deposits because we're in partnership together. Okay, so let's talk about the strategic plan part of the focus. Every organization should have a strategic plan that clearly identifies your identity as an organization, your mission, vision, and your core values, and then also your key objectives or goals that you're working on for, say, the next 1 to 3 years. Part of the board's role in fundraising is actually helping to move that strategic plan forward. At the beginning of every single board meeting, you should focus your time on generative thinking and future thinking. Like, what is it that we're doing to help implement our strategic plan? And one of the core reasons for that is that donors want to see you going somewhere. If you have a strategic plan that is sitting on a shelf somewhere and you're not doing anything with it, then you're just working through the motions. And donors want to know that you're moving the organization forward for the sake of the people that you serve every single day. And the best way to show them that you're doing that is by doing it, because it will change how you talk about what your organization's doing. It will change how board members reference why it's important to participate in something like Midlands Give, or come to an event, or make a donation, or why it's important for a particular board member to even introduce an executive director to a potential donor. Having that value there is really critical for a board member feeling like this is important. This is going to be successful. We're doing this together. The work and the time that I spend on this board is relevant. And the strategic plan is a key piece to helping keep that in focus. Your messages that you share to the community should also align with your identity and your objectives. Tell people what you've been doing. Tell them how, because of who you are moving this particular objective forward. The strategic plan is the board's job. It is their job to champion it and to lift it up and to make sure that it's moving forward. So I would be remiss to teach a board development training without grounding it in the importance of the strategic plan. Okay, next up, leadership led. So the greatest relationship withdrawal that we could make is asking someone to do something that we're not willing to do ourselves. And so when we, as board members and higher level staff, are comfortable and passionate about making a gift that is significant to our means and the missional value that we place on the work of the organization, then we are setting an example. And that is a true relationship deposit. It doesn't always have to be the same amount. I have lots of conversations with clients about, well, we ask our board to all give $200 every year. And that's fundraising. That's not funds development, right? Because there are hopefully people on your board for whom $200 might be too much for them, but also people on your board for whom $200,000 might be a gift, right? And so when we have this blanket concept of how much a board member should give related to fundraising, we're not treating people like people. We're not meeting people where they are. And that actually creates shame and obligation. When people come to us through our clients or to our clients through a capital campaign or previous capital campaign that we were not a part of, and they say, I'm really sorry that I can't give more, then the way that we've asked has created shame. And we don't want to do that. We want people to know that their gift matters in the whole, and that their gift is a part of what's going to get us all to where we need to be to implement our mission and serve the people that we serve. Okay, so leadership led. We often talk about the board giving as a gift of record. We need 100% participation, and we need a gift of record, but that's not an obligation gift of record. That's a passionate gift of record. And that changes how we talk about it with our board, which will change how our board sees their own giving choices. Okay.
Mitzie, can you answer? We had a question that said specific to this, informing our board when we talk about deposits versus withdrawals. Why is informing them considered a withdrawal?
Yeah, so information is a tricky one. And I have other trainings where I spend a whole lot of time on this. So I'm going to give you a high-level Cliff Notes version of this. But oftentimes information is a withdrawal because of the way that we share it. It's important for people to know what we're doing. It's important for people to know that we've served this many folks. But usually information sharing in a nonprofit is, this is happening and now we need something. They're usually tied together. So if you think about, and I don't want to step on toes here, but if you think about, if you send out a weekly e-newsletter or a monthly e-newsletter that has a whole bunch of stuff inside of it that's all information sharing, that is a withdrawal. People cannot absorb information like that in today's world. It just doesn't work well. If you think about sharing information, some of the ways you can know if it's going to be more withdrawal is, do they have to have their calendar out when you give them the information, right? If they have to have their calendar out, it's a withdrawal because you need them to put something on their calendar. If it is momentum building information, like, oh my gosh, we can't wait to tell you how much we've raised for Midlands Gives, that's information that becomes a deposit because it's building momentum and passion. Nobody wants to be the last person to make a gift to an organization. And so when you can show that you have people on board and people giving, that information sharing is really important. I think that's different. I want to make a classification or a distinction between information sharing in general and then information sharing in a board meeting where you are sharing information that the board needs to address their fiduciary and governance responsibility, right? Those are two different things. They need that information to make a decision. And often we only engage with our boards by email to prepare for a next meeting or in a meeting. We forget that they're donors. We forget that they need thank you notes and they need that same level of encouraging information to show the value that they bring to what you're doing. Does that help? Whoever asked that? Okay, great. Okay. Thank you, Erin. I'm really bad at the chat. So we planned that ahead of time that Erin would help me. Okay, so the board and the team's role. It is very possible that your organization has a development committee. And it probably has board people on it, but it probably also has volunteers on it. And yes, that is good. If you don't have that, I would encourage you to create a development committee. And it is their responsibility to help staff, especially leadership staff, implement the development strategy for the organization. However, every single board member is a development officer. Every single staff person is a development officer. And every organization that I go into, I do a training with staff and board on you're a development officer. Every conversation that you have, regardless of what it's about, you represent the organization, and people are either feeling a deposit or a withdrawal toward the organization. And the more deposits they feel, the more likely they are to give. And so it's important for everybody to understand that. But the board or this team, this development team or the full board, they don't just monitor expenses. It's important for them to monitor the revenue side. And quite frankly, that side is more exciting, right? To monitor the revenue. And so as a part of the core development function of the board, how is it, like, how much money every year from a revenue standpoint do we want coming from development efforts? And that's something that the board should consider. And before the board chooses to raise that number, they should have a plan for how they're going to get there together with the staff, right? It is not a top down, oh, next year we need to add $100,000 to our development revenue. It's next year we're going to add $100,000 to our revenue by doing this, right? So it's a shared responsibility. And that goes back to the strategic plan. Personally, I like for all of my clients to have a development goal inside of their strategic plan, whether it's improving annual fund in a future capital campaign or improving planned giving. There's always room to grow in one of those areas. And if it is a strategic objective, then it stays in front of the board as their responsibility. And so it's much easier to see. Donor events, when you have donor events, they are either fundraisers or fundraisers. And I was just before this teaching a class about the difference between fundraisers and fundraisers. If you're having fundraising events in your organization where you actually ask people to make a gift, you probably have it down pat what you need people to do. But one of the things that's helpful in getting the board members to participate in that effort is also by helping to show value for what you do and inspire people. The more inspiration you can add into an event, the less transactional it becomes, and the more funds development it becomes. It becomes partnership and relationship and long-term care. So the board's role in that includes making sure that you keep inspiration and the value of your work in front of the people who are coming. It also includes thanking people. So any event, there should be a gratitude moment for what people have done or are going to do to help you do that. The board can also share generosity stories. So if we've cultivated our board, if they're giving a gift significant to their means and in line with their passion for the organization, you can ask them some simple questions as a generosity story. First, tell me why this organization matters to you. Second, why do you choose to give to this organization? And three, what do you hope you're giving, or what do you know, because you're on the board, your giving is going to do as a result of that generosity? Those are great stories to share with people outside. And, ask 4 board members a year, maybe your outgoing board members every year, to give a generosity story, and then share 1 a quarter with your constituency. That's a great role for them. Other roles are outcome stories. So can your board help you collect impact stories? What did people need from your organization? How were you an agent of change to offer that and meet that need? And how is that person different now? Your board is a great place, especially for smaller organizations, to be the ones who are collecting those stories from the people that you serve. If you are a highly operational board, makeup as opposed to more of a Carver model board makeup, then board members can do a lot of benefit for an organization by collecting those stories. But here's the thing about that. It's not enough to say, I need you to collect stories. You have to show them how. You have to teach them. A lot of times our board members are not doing something because they don't know how to do something. And so giving them that training can help facilitate that. Giving them a system to implement can help them be better board members. Policies, the board, and if you have a development team, should be making sure that you have or reviewing on a regular basis your gift acceptance policies, any kind of special giving. Even if you have like an endowment and you have bylaws, they can be helping with that. They should be helping make sure that you're being transparent about money in the messaging that you share so that there are never surprises for donors. And they should be honoring restrictions before and after gifts are made. Before, meaning if a gift is made with a restriction that they know they can't do, they should not accept the gift. And have a real conversation with the donor. And after that, if they have accepted a gift with a restriction, that they will honor it. That is part of the board's fiduciary responsibility to maintaining relationships. And then ensure any annual funds development plan is being implemented on a regular basis. And they should have a role in that. And some of the things that I've listed are a part of that, but that's sort of the all-encompassing piece of it. Okay, let's talk about the annual plan itself. So some questions that you can ask yourself about your annual plans around funds development, the plan that the board can be implementing alongside staff, are how are you reaching annual fund givers, capital givers, and planned giving donors? Okay, those are really 3 different types of donors. And they're all different. They all come usually out of your annual fund. So having a strong annual fund is always the first thing that the board should ensure in an organization, is that you have a strong annual fund process. And then from that, you can build on your planned giving and your capital, any kind of capital gifts that you need, in particular, if you need to go into a capital campaign. But your plan should include how to reach those 3 types of donors. And when I say that, maybe there's a particular donor that gives to annual fund that has made a large capital gift and you know they have a legacy gift. The way that I like to think about it is the biggest bang for their buck comes in their personality donor type, right? So maybe they give to the annual fund and maybe they've given a capital gift, but when they die, you get this huge gift that you're like, whoa, didn't know that was coming or didn't know it was going to be that much, right? If you have that feeling about it, they're a legacy giver. That is the biggest bang for their buck, right? When you add it all up, it comes in that type of gift. And annual fund people, the biggest bang for their buck comes in annual fund. Capital people, the biggest bang for their buck comes in capital gifts. So capacity building or brick and mortar kind of things, right? You have to have a plan that speaks to all 3 types. When do we tell stories? So what is your calendar for telling stories? And when do you ask? And this is a big one because in a lot of organizations, asking becomes reactionary. If there's not a development plan and the board is not monitoring that and helping implement that, then asking becomes reactionary. Oh my gosh, this thing has come up and now we need to have money to pay for this, right? When you have a true funds development system in place, then when that thing comes up, there are people you can go to. You don't have to do this blanket crisis management ask for money. You get to do that. You get to have a crisis ask as long as you've been doing the work along the way. And I think this is a real tell for how healthy a board is. When a board understands that they can't just have a panic and throw out all this messaging on social media and emails to ask for money because we have this panic, when they understand that, they're more willing to do the work year round. And the work year round means that we're making relationship deposits, that the generosity of the people who are giving is funding all the things that we need it to fund, right? And if there is a panic, I know exactly who I can go to ask for that gift because it's in line with their personality. It's treating people like people, right? It's not a blanket. What also happens is crisis messaging around giving creates a downward inward spiral. So when we share relationship withdrawals and we ask for a crisis, some people will respond because they care and it's important. But some people will fling off of that cycle. And then if we don't get what we need and we ask again, and it sounds like if you haven't given or you gave this much, but we need more, right? That's withdrawal language. That people don't want to be a part of that organization because nobody wants to be the last person to give to an organization. Okay, so any kind of messaging that is spiraling in, we need, and asking for crisis, you are going to have donors flinging off of that. Instead, inspire them, thank them, share relationship deposits, and you'll have more people coming onto that spiral, and it's going to go up and out, and just more people are going to be coming in, so that when you do need to have that one-off, it's not a crisis if it's a crisis every day, right? It's a crisis if it's Hurricane Helene all of a sudden and you've built strong relationships and now this thing that people understand is different and you need this extra boost, right? That's the distinction. All right, let me get back here, annual plan. So when are you going to tell stories? When do you ask? My whole point in that little tangent that I went off on is that you should be asking at the same times every year, and basically you get 2 a year. So spread them out. End of the year, 35% of giving in the United States happens between Thanksgiving and the end of the year. So you should definitely be a part of that, right? And then you get kind of one in the spring. You can spread them out six months apart from each other. What are our events so that we don't overextend and over ask? That's important. You should know like a year out what you're going to be participating in, and that should be consistent year after year. Donors are creatures of habit, and you create the habits through consistency. And then are you, as a part of your plan, hitting the 5 steps? I talked about the 4 steps of communication. There are 5 steps of fundraising. You have to identify people. So your plan should include bringing new people in, and the board is your biggest network for that. The board should be the literal connector to new donors. So identify, inform, inspire, ask, and thank. Are all 5 of those pieces covered in your annual plan for development? So some pitfalls that the board should also be thinking about, and this in my mind comes from fiduciary and governance responsibilities. It's about managing risk. And yes, there is risk to serving clients or providing services. There's also risk in the development office if it's not done well. And so you want to mitigate that also. Poor data management is a big one. Not having good records, and the board should make sure that happens. One of the ways to make sure is that you have a good management software, right? And if that's not something the organization has, I would say it's the board's responsibility to help make sure that they get that so that you are managing your data well. Allowing donor behavior to change without making stewardship deposits. So one of the things the board should be asking to see every single year is the number of lapsed donors. And they should have a responsibility in re-engaging those lapsed donors. Give them their names, spread their names out among board members and have them write notes to them, pick up the phone and call them, send them emails, but some form of re-engagement. That is one of the pitfalls or risks to development. Failure to focus on both retention and acquisition. So getting new donors and retaining donors should be a part of the plan, and making sure both of those are in there. And then missing opportunities to close the next move to deepen engagement. So in fundraising, we talk about the moves management system. Moving people more deeply into the organization means that their giving is usually increasing. And so when board members are talking to people, they need to have that in mind, and they won't just do that. That's something they have to be trained to do, right? If you're having a conversation with somebody and they're like, oh, you serve on the board of blah, blah, blah. And they're like, yeah, use that. That's like a door just opened. And we want to take an opportunity to deepen that. It's not an ask up front, right? It's, as a board member, I'm thinking, how can I inspire this person to want to keep knowing more about this organization now that they have realized that I'm on this board, right? Or somebody comes to them and says, I understand that you're on the board of whatever, and I've been thinking about getting involved in the community. Well, the next move there is, would you like to volunteer? I can talk to you about some of the ways that you could do that, right? Whatever is the next step, board members should always be thinking it is their job to help move to the next step. And one of the best ways they learn to do that, two ways. One is you doing that with them as staff. And second, training them to pay attention to those really critical conversations. So general activities, just kind of an all in that the board can do, and know that not all board members are the same. So providing this kind of list to the board and letting them say, these are the things I'm most passionate about. And if you don't have a development committee already, giving them this and letting them think through what they're passionate about can help you identify who should be on that committee if you need to create it, right? Because if they're passionate about very specific pieces of this, then they can then be on the committee. So first, hosting events. That is one of the things that they can be doing. And by events, I don't mean fundraisers. By events, I mean small gatherings in their home where they are telling the story of what you're doing and inviting their friends and family and colleagues to become more deeply connected and to learn more about it. Introducing staff to prospects. So in every board meeting, it's appropriate to say, have you had any conversations lately that make you think a person might be interested in what we do? That's not the same as, who should I be asking a gift for? Hear the difference? Who should I be asking a gift for is withdrawal language. Have you had any conversations lately with people who might be interested in what we do? Is deposit language. It's treating people like people and meeting them where they are, right? It all comes down to the DNA of the organization and how they think about their donors. And relationship deposit, relationship equity, thinking of donors as partners will change how we have conversations. Writing thank you notes, they can always do that. At one of our previous board meetings, we had 90 donors who made a gift of $1,000 or more to Hurricane Helene recovery. For those of you who don't know, I'm serving as an interim CEO for a nonprofit that has camps around the Southeast, and 2 of our camps got hit really hard by Hurricane Helene. And so we made it easy for them. We put a basket out. We put like address labels, and they were just laying there with thank you notes, envelopes, and stamps. And we said, if you know somebody on the list, pull their name off, write them a note, and then stick it in this box and we'll mail it. And what we did is, they have like 6 meals during their board retreat. We said, do one at every meal, right? We gave them a plan. We gave them what they needed, and then they did it. And it was great. And as CEOs, we heard back, we're co-CEOs, we heard back from people saying, wow, I got a note from the board. Yeah, it's a big deal when people get that. And they can sign board member of whatever the name of your organization is. Contacting Libunts. So Libunts are lapsed donors. They gave last year, but not this year. Or Sybunts, they give some years, but not this year. You can have a list of those folks and pass it around at the board meeting. And if I know somebody, I can say, you know, I'll contact that person. That's a great board activity in funds development. Gathering stories, I talked about that. Sharing social media posts. So if people don't do this instinctively, right? You have to kind of plant the seed. If you see a story or something that we post about our organization on social media that touches your heart, we would love for you to share that, because when you share it, it creates engagement, and social media platforms pay attention to that. The more engagement we have, the more they will share. Like, help them understand the mechanics of how the algorithms work. And then asking people to join you in giving for one-on-one solicitations. Not every board member is going to be comfortable doing this, right? But it is totally appropriate if they have the best relationship to be the one who either asks or who gets you in the door to ask. And I think sometimes we assume that board members aren't going to do this. But if they're trained and they're made to feel comfortable, oftentimes they will, because they care about the person that you're asking from. So that, don't underestimate a board member's ability to do that. Okay, so let's talk about board member activities in Midlands Gives and what they can do specifically to be helpful for that effort. So May the 6th, right? Did I get it right, Erin? Yep. Okay, great.
Yeah.
So Midlands Gives is May the 6th. Go ahead and ask them to mark their calendar and pay attention during that day. Okay, that's a simple activity they can do, right? Put it on your calendar and pay attention. That's a day. We know you might not be on social media all the time. We know you have work, but in your little breaks, or if you finish a meeting early, right, give them the actual expectation. We want you to pay attention that day. We want you sharing, putting it out there that you made a gift, right? So share stories leading up to May 6th to make deposits. So I talked about that already, but go ahead and get them sharing stories and sharing other positive things before May the 6th, so that when May the 6th comes, you've got relationship equity in their bank, right? In everybody's bank. Share posts provided by the organization to encourage giving. If you want to ask, and I've done this before, if a board member's on social media, but they're not like super active on social media, then I'll say, can I just tag you so it shows up on your page? And they're like, sure. So you should ask really to do that, but you may know them well enough that you're like, I don't need to ask. And that's up to you. But that is another way to get that content out there. And again, it's playing into what the social media platforms want and the algorithms around that. They can share and write thank you notes. So if you have a way to alert them during the day of who's giving and it's somebody that they know, they can write a thank you note, a little email or a text message, and say thank you. At the end of Midlands Gives, they can also write thank you notes. But the day of, anything you can do the day of to build momentum and keep momentum going and keep it in front of people, the more engaged they're going to be. And then share totals to build momentum also. Like wherever you are, whatever your goal is, you want to be constantly giving feedback through the day, because people want to be a part of something that is successful. Like that's why influencers work, right? People want to be a part of something that is successful. And on a day like this, your board members are influencers. Like that's literally what they're doing. And so sharing totals, having them share totals, but not in a share to give more, a share to say thank you. Every time you're sharing an updated total, you're saying, thank you for, like, oh my gosh, this, everything is magical, right? Everything is awesome. Like the Lego movie. When you share it, you build momentum by sharing gratitude and inspiration and momentum, right? That is the purpose of the day. We should never say, we need this much more money today. We shouldn't. We should always be saying thank you to the people who gave. And here's why. Like, I call it corporate shame and praise. If you are, let's say you're a part of a membership organization and like there are 15 people in the room and 14 people made gifts or even increased their giving, but you didn't hit your goal because the 15th person, maybe if you really look at the data, didn't make that last gift. If you stand up and say, we're still short our goal, you've made everybody who's made a gift feel like their gift didn't matter. And that messaging is really detrimental to an organization. The problem is it's instinctive to do it. And you have to fight that instinct. Everything you share should be positive and affirming and encouraging and gratitude grounded. Every single thing. Okay? They can see what your goal is. They can see that you're not there. But if you thank them for every penny that you got, you're going to get more in the future. Okay. I think, oh, I have one more slide. And then writing your own posts, I probably just said all this, but what do you value most? Oh, they can write their own post. Sorry, that's what I was trying to say. Like you could literally give your board members this slide and you can say, leading up to Midlands Gives Day, on Midlands Gives Day, you can write your own post. What do you value most about the work that our organization does? What impact have you seen in the lives of the people that our organization serves? Why do you give to our organization? And then they can just 1 or 2 sentences for each of those things. And then they can say, I've made a gift to Midlands Gives, and I invite you to join me, not because you need it, but because your gift is going to have impact on the lives of the people that we serve. That is a key. So this is a slide you could literally give your board members, and every single board member can do this. It takes 5 minutes. They don't need to overthink it. They need to be instinctive. If they love and care about what you do as an organization, if they said yes to being a board member because they are passionate, this should be the easiest thing you ask them to do. Now, if they're not passionate, that's a different conversation we can have another day. Okay? Okay. So, question.
Mitzie, well, and when you go back to that slide, this is Erin, Community Foundation. So I don't know if you can talk a little bit more about how this could work. But one of the things we are considering to help our nonprofit is to tie, we do prizes every year, is to tie up several prizes to board members who create fundraiser pages and share those out.
Okay.
And so that, I think this could be a really, just for those of you on here, this could be a really good way to give them, like, what would they say on their fundraiser page and why it's important. Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Good point. Thank you, Erin. Perfect. Okay, so this last slide here has where you can find these slides that I've just shared. So I have a website, and I don't just put content like this out there for open consumption. You have to know the link, right? So if you type in mitzieschafer.com/Midlands, you'll have access to these slides. You can download them. Okay. And then I am happy to answer any questions that you have for as long as you want to stay, or until 3 o'clock, because I have another meeting.
Thank you, Mitzi. That was very, very helpful. Good information for me, and really thinking about how I'm framing my messages, because it really says a lot. I'm like, oh, I think I'm doing more withdrawals than deposits, and really talking in that inspiring way versus need way. So I appreciate that. Anyone here who is on the in the training, you're welcome to unmute and ask questions that you think would be helpful for the full group, to provide some good information back to help you all plan for how to now engage your board to help them get ready for Midlands Gives Day or beyond. I know from our data that typically less than 50% of our Midlands Gives nonprofits have board members who participate in Midlands Gives and help support them on that. So that is a major thing that we wanted to be able to help with. That's why we did this training, to be able to help, because these should be your biggest supporters. And how do you engage and motivate them on one of the big giving days in the Midlands?
Hi, Mitzie. Excuse me. Hi, this is Candace Berry Vaughn. I'm with the Orangeburg County Community of Character nonprofit. And one of the challenges that I am having, or I probably, if you can have some advice for, is I'm getting my board members to get more engaged in giving. And right now, I can't get them to commit to like a set amount each year. So right now we're working on a give and get. You have any thoughts or comments on that? I get it. I understand. I know I can't manage anybody else's checkbook. Have a hard time managing my own sometimes. But is there some tips you can give about that, of how we can move past that, or really get them to, like, it's okay to set a goal, and it doesn't have to be, you know, a huge goal, but just if we could commit to X, that makes a big difference, I think, in showing and sharing what we do, and showing that we are trying to help ourselves as opposed to always asking from others. Do you have any tips on that, on how
I do. Yeah, I do want to just clarify what you mean when you say give and get.
So nobody wants to commit to a dollar amount. So they're like, if they ask and get $50, then they'll give 50. Not quite a match, but it's like,
I gotcha.
whatever you give, try to get it. Like if you say, I'm going to give 100, try to get it. And that's not necessarily from one person. They look at it as across whoever they ask to get, let's say if it's $100.
Yeah. So, how many times do you meet a year with your board?
4.
Okay. So what I would recommend is, and I do this with clients and also the organization where I'm serving right now. So we have a rotation of board meetings where we cultivate the board members. So for example, we just had our March board meeting, and my co-CEO, he does honey. He has honeybees. And so he brought little jars of honey, and I wrote thank you notes to everybody. And we had them around the table saying, thank you for your, thank you for your generosity of time and resources to this organization. And then we put something personal in there. So we hit, right, we're talking inform, inspire, ask, and thank. So twice a year, minimum once a quarter, or minimum twice a year, ideally once a quarter, we're thanking our board members. And again, it goes to funds development, right? As opposed to fundraising. It's not going to be an instant gratification that at that meeting, when we ask them, all of a sudden they're going to magically give us pledges. But if we do those things, we're creating a system inside the organization for them to be participating as donors. So then we want to make sure that they get the stories. So if you're, which you should all be sending impact stories. Like, this is the difference that it makes, the work that we do. But at every board meeting, ground your conversation in impact. And a lot of people, when I talk to them the first time, they'll say, well, I have this story that I always share. If they're on the board, it's really likely they've already heard that story, right? And so it's important to have new stories on a regular basis. So as a leader of the organization, I might ask myself before I walk into a board meeting, okay, what's the one thing I know that's happened for somebody that we serve that I'm most proud of in the last 3 weeks? Doesn't have to be really formulated. It doesn't have to be something you've shared as an organization, but I'm going to start the conversation with the board by reminding them why they're there. They are not there simply to balance a budget or to check the finances. They are there because the work that you do matters, right? So ground it in there. This is all part of cultivation. So now we're inspiring every single board meeting. Then we want to inform, right? And I like to, some organizations talk about it like PQI, performance and quality improvement, or quality insurance. We have what we call a dashboard, and the dashboard has some key pieces on it. So we'll say, how many new donors did we get? How much has giving increased? How many legacy gifts have we closed? Like, we know somebody's told us that we're in the paperwork. How many recurring donors do we have? And what is our participation rate at for the board? And I think it's an education piece to say our goal is for it to always be at 100%. And then so that I'm actually not in favor of give and get. Personally, I want to have a conversation with a board member about their passion, and I want them to make a gift. And this is the language that I use. And so once a year, one board meeting, we always ask the board. And I get to do that because I cultivated at all the other board meetings, right? And so at one board meeting, somebody from the board, not the staff, somebody from the board, maybe you create a development committee on the board, and the person who's the most generous for their means, not the person who gives the most. The person who is most generous for their means is the chair of that committee. And they, during the board meeting, say, this is why I give. We listen to the stories that Candace shares at all of our board meetings, and we know what we do makes a difference. And I choose to give a gift significant to my means because I know it's helping the people that we serve. And today, during this board meeting, and we do this every year, I'm inviting you to join me. So I'm going to pass out pledge cards, gift intent cards. I want you to know that we want you to think about a gift that is significant to your means, that shares the passion that you have for this organization. And we would like you to pledge that much for the next fiscal year. We know that things change and things might not, something might happen and you can't commit to this. This is not binding. This just helps us plan. But we're going to just take a couple minutes during the board meeting and let you think about this. And it can be a little awkward, right? We're just going to have some quiet time in the board meeting. But it shows them, right? You're setting clear expectations. You're asking them to participate, to join whoever it is. And you're giving them an opportunity to follow through. And so then, a little bit of time lapses and you can say, if you're ready to turn this in now, you can. But also, if you need to speak to your spouse or your partner and you want to make a shared gift as a family, go home and have that conversation, and then we'll follow up with you. And then it is the development committee's job, not the staff's. You are employed by the board if you are staff. It is the development committee's job to make sure everybody has an opportunity to participate. So you get them all in and they write them all thank you notes. Any that you don't get in, they pick up the phone and call them. Hey, we're just finalizing our board giving for our pledges for the year. And I want to make sure that everybody has an opportunity to participate. You can email that, you can mail it in, or you can tell me now if you know what your gift is going to be for the next year, right? And they might say, no, I don't want to do it. I might say, that's a different conversation, and why are you on the board, right? Because if $5 can be a gift significant to your means, and we are thankful for that, right? But the give and get also gives people an out. Like it sets up, like, I don't have to give. I can just get my mom who's got loads of money to give the money this year. And I don't have to. That's not the kind of person we want on the board. We want people on the board who care and who want to be there because they believe in what you do. Does that help, Candace?
Yeah, but so I'm a solo person.
Okay.
I am it, executive director, the volunteer, the everything.
Okay.
And so it just gets a little hard sometimes. And then
Yeah.
I feel like I hear everything you've said, but I feel like, man, maybe we can talk offline about this. Like for me to have that conversation, it would definitely feel like I would be shaming them because, and I don't mean to badmouth my board or anything, but
Yeah.
for like Midlands Give, I typically raise the most money.
Mm.
And so I'm passionate about why I accepted this job and what I do. And I
Yeah.
don't want to make anybody feel ashamed, but I do feel like it's hard for me to go out and ask when they're not doing
Yeah.
more. And so that's going to be a tough conversation for me. So we can definitely talk offline.
Yeah.
Some other tips on that.
Absolutely. And just one sidebar for anybody else who finds themselves in that kind of situation. When you are a solo staff, it is really critical to have a development committee. That's really when it can make like some organizations have huge development offices. Most organizations don't. And so there's a reason those committees were created initially and why they can be super effective. And so maybe it's changing expectation on the organization to say, instead of this year focusing on their giving, this year we're going to focus on implementing the deposits and creating the committee. And then when a committee's created, it gives you an opportunity to develop them, right? Okay, the committee is here's the committee, handpick who's on it because they're generous. Significant, right? That's how you choose who's on the committee, because they're generous, okay? And then you have a training. Use this slide, like use my slide presentation and train them on how to be the development committee. I don't mind if you do that at all. It's literally why we're here. And then you can give them their tasks, and they have, in January we're doing this, in February we're doing this, in March we're doing this, and that includes them leading the conversation in the board meeting. Yeah.
Thank you.
Give yourself time to implement that well. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. Great.
Pamela Brown had her hand up. I'm not sure if she still had the question. She put it down, so I wasn't sure.
Oh, I don't see.
I had put it in the chat and it was answered in the chat. Thank you so much, Erin.
Oh, okay. Great. Other questions? Did I miss anything in the chat?
I don't think so. I don't that I missed.
So bad at chat. I'm really bad at chat.
All right. Well, I think this might be it then. So Mitzie, thank you again. Thank you for spending time answering questions. I think that you all had some good questions as well. So thanks for spending the time on this. Mitzie I did include in the chat the link that she said where you can find these slides. We'll also link the recording, as well as we can link to Mitzie's slides then on our page where you registered. We'll put them all there, and any other trainings that we're doing for Midlands Gives, you'll find the recordings in that same place, so you can have them all, share them with your staff, share them with your development committees. But that'll be a good resource for you all moving forward. So I really, again, want to thank Mitzie for her time that she has spent with us today. She's a great resource, and I'll go ahead and make the plug as well. She's great at what she does. If you're looking for people to walk you through other tasks, take a look at her website. There's some really good information there as well. And she's been a really good resource to other nonprofits in our area. So if there's no other questions, thank y'all for joining us during your lunch. And we'll have another training next Tuesday. And